how much, what are the sort of the regulations on the schools that might be approached to take their students on a tuition basis rather than part of the district as to what the cost is for tuition students, and do they have some avenues in there to charge what they want, or?
Not exactly, but yes. So
There's a limit?
5804 and 5805 is the statute where we calculate the tuition. It's called the maximum allowable tuition rate
Right.
for each district. However, those sections also allow for the sending unit to pay more if they agree. So basically what I'm saying is we have a set rate that we set as a maximum allowable, but a sending unit can agree to pay more. So for instance, this agreement, at some point they will discuss tuition payments in this agreement. And they will say, you know, we're going to pay the set rate that's calculated by the department in 5805. And they're going to say, and we will agree to pay an additional 5% on top of that for so many years.
There's a school in my district that does that,
Yes.
a town that does that,
Yes.
for the high school.
So there's a potential for paying more. And so they just have to, it's a local choice. It's a local decision between both parties.
So could that be negotiated in a sense? So, you know, I'll just sort of lay it out. There's one district that wants to, one of the bills we have is they want to pull out and then tuition their students back in probably. That the district that of which they pull out could say no, right? We're not going to accept your students.
Yeah.
Or they could say, yes, we're going to accept them only if you agree to pay X amount above this calculated amount. So that's possible?
Yes, it is.
And legal?
Yes, as far as I understand, yes.
Okay. Okay. So, all right. Okay. I feel we're getting a little closer, maybe. And that's the majority of that bill there. Those are the two big changes. Okay.
And
Yeah, is there anything else that we should know about?
the deadline, is that ahead?
November 30th? Is that in the, I don't know if that's in the bill.
That was her recommendation in her testimony.
Oh, in her testimony.
To make an amendment.
Make an amendment to the bill to state how that should be worded. I
Sure, I've
think.
got it right here in my, thank you.
All right, I've got it in my file here somewhere, but I didn't know I'll find it.
Let's see. So the referendum vote to approve withdrawal must be completed by November 30 of the year prior to the intended July 1 effective operational date for the withdrawn administrative district.
Okay. So we have that in your testimony, so we'll be able to refer to that. Okay, any other, Representative McCray?
I agree. I think we need to go to something that can be applied all the way around. But something you said a minute ago, the district or the school that the withdrawing district wishes to send their kids to or tries to negotiate a rate. And you said that certainly it might be more than the appropriate cost. Are there any limits to that? I mean, could it be $50,000 per kid, let's say, just as a crazy example?
I don't believe the law limits it. It's 5804 and 5805. I don't believe there's a limit to that. I don't know that I've seen anybody
Yes.
take advantage of that. The other thing I should mention, and I forgot to mention, was the tuition. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it is, thank you.
The tuition doesn't include special ed costs.
Does
So-
not.
Right. And that's something I always try to say up front to these withdrawing towns. Keep in mind that special ed is 100% of the cost of whatever it takes to provide the IEP services that those children need.
And that's borne on the withdrawing count?
That's the withdrawing town. Wherever they send their children, they are responsible for 100% of special education costs.
Is that included in the language here that in the budget?
It's part of one of the, may I read?
Sure.
One of the parts of 1466 talks about special education, and it's always included in the withdrawal agreement. And part of my role is to make sure that it's understood that tuition does not include those costs, and that those are costs that are paid over and above tuition. And so I've always, for most of them anyway, not when they first started, I've gotten better over the years, made sure that that language was in the withdrawal agreement,
Okay.
so that there's no question, they understand that going right from the start. Because that's always been something that can be very costly to districts.
So if you're in a district, and you're in a town that's looking to withdraw, but you're in a district, and you send your students into that school in the district, this, are those, let me phrase this differently, are the special ed costs borne by the town regardless of whether they're inside the district or the district funds that?
If you're in a combined district, everybody bears the cost of the special ed students,
Equally.
no matter what town they're from, if they're a part of a resident district, a resident of that district.
Okay, Representative Corcoran.
I thought that there was something that protected the identity of high-cost special ed students. Wouldn't this expose them?
We do not provide numbers from towns of special ed students below a certain number. If they only have, I can't remember the details because that's not part of my specific job, but we do not allow that to be known. As far as like one town may only have one, we don't say that. They never know the number of special ed students from that town in any of our information that we provide because of that specific reason.
But might they know the costs?
They would know the costs.
Okay.
And sometimes, unfortunately, other people share information they shouldn't, and it gets out there.
Gotcha.
The department makes sure that we're very careful not to allow any personal identifiable information that could then help them to know that specific type of information.
Right.
But Representative Corcoran, again.
So, they just know the cost, they wouldn't know whether this is 5 children or a single child?
Exactly.
Okay.
Correct.
Representative Turner.
Thank you. And another important piece of that is when you do withdraw, and especially if you offer school choice, you're now very attractive. And so you never know who's going to move in. So those special ed costs may be, $50,000 today, but next year it could be triple that. Or it could be less, you just don't know. But they could increase.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I think what I propose that we discuss is in 2 parts. I think we do this. We look at the proposal that's here in 1336, which mirrors LD 51. We look at crafting what we think is good public policy for that piece, okay? Get good public policy to a place where we think we could vote on it. And then we've got to come back around a little bit and discuss the 2 more specific bills, which are SAB 44 and I'm not so sure we have SAB 6. I don't know if that's going to be in front of us, but certainly SAB 44 is here in front of us today. And then discuss the particulars of that, whether there's we carve out an exemption for this and just leave that a special private law in place. So I'd like to get good public policy out of the way first, and then go from there, if that's amenable. So if we're looking at 1336 with added language that has to do with the November 30th deadline piece in there, I think I'm okay with the special ed. I think what Ms. Gravel had said is now they make sure that that's in the withdrawal agreement. And do folks have, I guess, I guess the two pieces I think about having child nutrition services, I don't think anybody would disagree with that. I don't think anybody would disagree with the budget piece of it. I think the piece that's caused a little bit of heartburn for people is the binding mediation between the parties to come up with that agreement. So as we kind of whittle down these pieces, if folks think that the nutrition piece is good and that the budget piece is good and the November 30th is good, then we'll park those kind of in our public policy bill, and then let's talk about the 180-day piece, and then if you run into problems in that 180-day piece about binding mediation, so we're hoping to get some kind of a discussion with our folks up on the sixth floor about what binding mediation, what other unintended consequences might come from that. So I don't know. Let's open that up a little bit and talk about what people feel about that piece of it. So, President Fuente.
I have the impression that was a term we made up, that isn't a term. It's either binding arbitration or it's mediation.
We have a definition in here.
We do.
We do.
All right, let's find out.
Question, and it says, what is the difference between binding mediation and
Oh, that was
arbitration?
Sarah Forster, right?
That was a question to Sarah Forster. What are your definitions for the terms above?
Yeah, I know I have that here. Okay. Okay. I get it. So, mediation just works into an agreement. Whereas arbitration, I think, settles the issue. That is not.
It can, it may.
Yeah.
May settle.
Yeah. President Stewart.
Mr. Chair, yeah, it's my understanding that arbitration is more of a, you lock into whatever the result is before you get to that result. Whereas mediation is you work with the other party and there's a neutral mediator in the middle trying to massage it to get to something that you can work with. But it incorporates input from both parties, whereas an arbitrator would just hear A, hear B, here's a solution. If that makes sense.
I don't know if Ms. Holmes, you can answer this question. To your knowledge, does that go anywhere else in Title 28 that you know of?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. Mr. Ravel seems to have the whole book memorized.
Just that one section.
President McCray.
This binding mediation is a completely new term to me too. And Ms. Forster's response doesn't give that definition. Gives mediation, gives arbitration. Okay. The question too was, yeah, okay, mediation is the process. And binding mediation sends it to the voters.
An agreement to the voters. Yeah. So I think
Mediation doesn't mean that there will be an agreement.
not a, well, that's where we're struggling a little
Not,
bit.
not an executable agreement, no. Because they have to go through a couple more processes.
My understanding is that if this process were to go that route, they're working on an agreement, they put it in front of the voters, they've stalemated, they're in an impasse. A mediator comes in, works with both to the best of their ability, and if they still can't, then they shape that final agreement that goes to the voters. And then the voters make the ultimate decision. That's the way I understand it, but I don't know.
That's a lot to put on the mediator.
Yeah, no, I agree. So that's why we're taking the time on this particular bill, because it has that point. I was hoping for something that person gives.
So we are not, in addition addition to not being mediators or arbiters, we're not lawyers either. So I'm wondering is this a possibility of hiring someone if we continue to seek other, or can we?
I think we're close, but we need a little more expert help on this piece. Representative Turner.
And as you stated, you said that this mirrors 51, and it does everything that we, have discussed, the department has said is in LB 51. And even though it's a unanimous report, I've been around here long enough to not think this is a slam dunk. And I know there's some grumbling, especially over the mediation part. So I would like to see us hold it over, and the reason I want to see us hold it over is if 51 does fail, that we can come back next year, take out that binding mediation, and pass the rest of it. Because I don't think the rest of it is controversial, and it would help the department tremendously on especially the cost by November, and it's important that we feed our children and that the towns do know what they're getting into. So for that reason, because we don't know what is going to happen with 51, I really would like to hold the bill open.
We'll get in a minute, but there's a piece of this that I just latched onto, and then this has to do. I'm on page 1, lines 31. The parties fail to enter an agreement within 180 days after the withdrawal committee is formed. The withdrawal committee by a majority vote may petition the commissioner. I don't know if Ms. Gravel can answer that piece of what's the decision-making process at the commissioner level to whether to order binding mediation or not, because that looks like where that decision is made. They can petition for it, doesn't necessarily mean it's granted. How do you see, what are the pieces of that request that you would have to see in front of you?
I would anticipate reviewing how long they've been working. I would anticipate wanting to look at the notes from the meetings that they've had and determine if mediation truly is necessary at that point. I think we would want to look at, all of the evidence from both sides, Is one side truly stalling, or have they done what they can in a timely manner?
Is there something that would that process be objective or subjective? What do you?
Probably going to be a little of both,
Okay.
honestly. I over time, I could probably set up something a little more subjective. It has a certain amount of time, certain amount of extensions, certain amount of meetings, etc. I haven't thought that through.
Okay, it just, to me, that seems to be a linchpin to this particular paragraph, that it's not a given that it goes right to mediation. You might say, hey, okay, go back and work this a little bit more. You haven't worked hard enough to get to a mediator yet. Is that?
Yes, I think that's probably a viable option.
Okay. President Fuller?
A procedural question, perhaps. If the negotiations go so far that they land up in binding mediation, the mediator reaches a decision, and one of the parties can't accept the decision, what's the process then? What happens when that happens?
I think that's what binding means.
So when it's binding, it's over.
Yep, that's my impression.
May I
Yeah, please.
offer, after what Representative Turner just said, I wonder, I understand the binding is kind of a turning.
Binding us up.
The binding is binding us up. So as much as I would rather see it be binding, because I anticipate mediation not always working, it already hasn't in a couple of cases, I would rather see this be able to go through to help them as quickly as possible with all of these other issues. Would it be amenable to change it to just mediation rather than binding mediation?
It's amenable to me personally. If in baby steps, a future I was hoping to get rid of this stuff for those of you that are gonna be here in another session. I'm all done after this session, so, but I'm thinking of my future colleagues, not to be sitting, this late in the day, going over this. But I think that's probably a great response to this at this time, and then just to have you come back at a future and say, we really need to go binding because,
But that might give us more time to research what that truly means
yeah,
and what a process would be if there was one that did not agree. I absolutely see your point there. But rather than hold it over, perhaps we could change that piece of it. Still have mediation come in, because perhaps that's all they need is an external person and a third party coming in to help them work through some of those items.
yeah.
That's what I'd like to see happen.
Okay, folks, I'd like to hear what your thoughts are on that. So, President Farnsworth.
Yeah, I've been troubled by the binding mediation all along. So my feeling is that if we can come up with what you're suggesting, but use the term mediation, see if it works, and if it doesn't, as with any legislation, if it doesn't, we always bring it back and do a repair job.
Okay. Representative McCray, I'd like to have you folks kind of weigh in on this.
I like that. So, the binding mediation is always, what is that? But anyway, this is to the committee and to people that are more putting this than I. We would not know by the time the next session came in, would we?
No, we wouldn't, but somebody future would be outside of this.
Right, but what I was getting at is
We see how it
if we
works.
just left it at mediation, would withdrawal proposals come to fruition during 2017, based on this?
I don't know, Ms. Brunel, do you have an opinion on if this change were to be made? Would it speed up some processes that are already going? And
This isn't an emergency, so this wouldn't
No.
even take effect until, what, January of 18 probably?
probably.
So it's not going to help.
Representative Corfield and Senator Millett.
Isn't there a process usually in negotiations for picking a mediator? I wondered whether we wanted to put that in. Aren't there three that are, isn't there some process
Something like
like
that, yeah.
three that are offered and?
We have them contact us now for help in cost saving, cost sharing or negotiation. We have a list that we provide to them of people that are available, and they decide and choose from that. That's what I envision this to be as well.
Okay.
That the commissioner would provide
Yeah.
a list of mediators.
And the cost is shared?
The cost is shared. I believe that is set in here as well.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Senator Millett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's important to recognize that we're changing the statute
Oh, yeah.
for everybody. And so, given that, I think moving forward conservatively and cautiously, I think is a wise way to proceed. And certainly there are a number of people who've been sitting in this room hearing us discuss all of this, who probably have an understanding that should things not be concluded in a satisfactory manner, that this bill will come back to us in some form or another at some point in time, and that should hopefully provide some additional motivation.
Representative Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand, I made the statement about holding it over in my justification why, but if you do take out the word binding, you basically have gone back to the way the statute is right now, in particular with negotiations. I don't see this still as something that will help move it along. I see this, it will kill LC 51, basically. And yeah, they'll pass this. Everybody will love this on both sides, I feel, because you have taken out that provision that the department may order that the two get together to discuss. Basically, you're putting in statute a word that doesn't really mean a lot more than what's already in statute for the two to come together. So, my thoughts are, I would be opposed to that.
Well, the may is in there prior to the word binding. So it may petition even when it says binding arbitration, so that, which means they may not as well.
Correct.
So, Ms. Gravel, are there currently situations that are in mediation that aren't binding with withdrawal process? Does that happen?
That has happened. I
Yes.
don't know of any now because the information doesn't always come to me that they've asked for a mediator.
So they could do that independent of the commissioner or ask for mediation because that's what they want to do.
Correct.
To help with that. But if there was somebody who felt like they were being stonewalled consistently, that the commissioner could, in this legislation, order the mediation
Correct.
above and beyond. They could order it, which doesn't happen right now, does it?
It does not.
So,
And there have been cases where mediation has been sought and it did not end up with an agreement.
even after a mediator.
Correct. Because it wasn't happening.
Okay. So we've narrowed it down to this word. All right, so I think we're in a place, what I'd like to do is we'll call for a little sort of corner caucus, we'll talk and then we'll see, we'll come out, see how we feel about that word being in or out. All right, let's take a few minutes, come back. Thank you for your patience out there in the audience. Making sausage.